Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host Austin Davidson.
Hello.
It's season 4, episode 58. Happy Tuesday, Austin. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. It's still kind of strange thinking that we're in the thick of the playoffs right now, and it just feels like the season started just a couple weeks ago, but here we are. We're through now the 18th week of meaningful football, if you will, and it's still frustrating that the Steelers aren't in it, but that doesn't mean that there's enjoyable football to watch, and there certainly was this weekend. One of the more entertaining wildcard weekends in recent memory. There were 2 overtime games, and as you pointed out, it was the first time that a 13-3 team lost on wildcard weekend, and the New England Patriots lost at home in the playoffs. And let me check this. Every game was a one-score game. How about that? Isn't that crazy?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good for a wild card weekend. And I mean, we haven't had overtime in the playoffs since 2011. And at least the wild card round since 2011, where the Steelers lost to the Broncos, which was really upsetting. But, you know, at least now there's more recent overtime games to talk about instead.
Oh, speaking of overtime, I hate it. I don't know if I've ever said that before.
Overtime is terrible.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, in the first game with the Bills and the Texans, both teams got to have the ball. I guess that's a good thing. I mean, it really felt like neither team wanted to win once it got to overtime. It was like the Bills jumped out to that huge lead, and then the Texans came roaring back, and then it was like neither team wanted to win until that last big play to, what's his name? What was his name? Taiwan Jones, that long pass play.
Yeah, I believe it was Taiwan Jones.
But, yeah, that was definitely a very different overtime than the Vikings and Saints, because I believe the Vikings just went down the field and scored, right?
Yes.
Oh, man. So a lot to unpack here this weekend. Where do you want to start? Because, I mean, all these games have their own interesting storylines.
Let's just go in order. We'll go in order how that happened.
That's boring. Come on.
Let's do
you know where I want to
Seahawks and Eagles, because I feel like this game was like the worst to talk about.
Yeah, so how about it? The Eagles and Seahawks played with the exact same score that they played to just 5 weeks ago, 17-9 in favor of the Seahawks. For some reason, I thought the score was different like afterwards. This was the game I paid the least attention to, as I'm sure it was the case with most people. Not that I was tired of football by that point, but it was, as we kind of explained before, it was probably the most competitive-looking game in terms of the preview, but the least healthy teams making it less compelling.
And it only got worse. I mean, Carson Wentz goes down when, like, the Eagles definitely had a chance in this game. The Eagles only lost by 8 points. Carson Wentz comes down. Josh McCown, in his long career, makes his first playoff debut. That was crazy to me. And it's just, like, people pointing out how long Josh McCown's been playing, where he handed off the last ball, the ball that Emmitt Smith got on his last touchdown in his NFL career. He threw Larry Fitzgerald's first touchdown pass, and then he's just in a playoff game like in 2020, and that's crazy. Unfortunately, it's probably it for the man. So I'm glad that he got to taste the playoffs. Like, it was the only time he's been in the playoffs in his career, so I'm glad he at least got to taste it for a little while. But just injuries. And then the other thing that came from this game was the Jadeveon Clowney hit. I don't know if you got a chance to see that.
I did see it.
Definitely.
What did you think about it?
You did? So, personally, I wasn't, crazy, he needs to be suspended. I think that he should get a fine, but it didn't really seem, super intentional like people made it out to be. It's the hit that put Carson Wentz into the locker room anyway, but I honestly didn't think it was as bad as other people were saying. He accidentally fell on his head, in my opinion. I think he's going to get a fine.
So you didn't think it was...
we're not suspending him.
You didn't think it was, intentional?
Not really. It didn't look like in real speed. Football doesn't play in slow speed.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm not really super sure. I'd need to see it again. But I mean, the optics aren't great when you slow it down, but like you said, you can't slow it down when it's happening in real time. It was really just an embodiment of what the Philadelphia Eagles season has been all year long. Just injuries after injuries, and the one guy that had been healthy all year, Carson Wentz, finally goes down, and this was a team that just, they fought tooth and nail to the bitter end, and they deserve a lot of credit for doing that. Josh McCown, I wouldn't say he was really all that good, but I mean, he was under a lot of pressure most of the game. The Eagles were able to get some sort of running game going. Miles Sanders was hurt in the game, but still had 69 yards. Boston Scott added in a handful of rushing yards. So, I mean, they were able to move the ball a little bit on the ground, but they could just never get anything going in the passing game. It was basically just the tight ends. We already knew that outside of Greg Ward, not even that Greg Ward was like a reliable option. Wasn't he in the AAF? Wasn't he in San Antonio?
Greg Ward? I don't believe so. I thought he was a draft pick this year.
Greg Ward? No, he's been around for a little while.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I don't really remember him in the AAF.
Greg Ward was with the San Antonio Commanders. Okay. I wanted to make sure that I was right about that. He was not their, he was like their number 3 receiver behind Mikhail McKay and DeMarcus Ayers. That's why.
Those two my dudes.
So now when you think about a dude who was a number 3 receiver in the AAF now being elevated to the top receiver, it kind of, it's understandable why they didn't play as well, especially when you factor in that they had their backup quarterback in. And speaking of McCown, wasn't he a free agent / borderline retired at the beginning of the year? I think it was something like the Eagles had a bunch of injuries at quarterback, shockingly enough, and they ended up bringing him in. I think it was like Nate Sudfeld went down.
Yeah, they had a lot of hurt quarterbacks early on. They lost Nate Sudfeld and they lost someone else other than Sudfeld. They lost 2 quarterbacks in preseason relatively early. Oh, they had a draft pick that they got, and he got hurt. I think his name was Clayton Thornton. Does that sound familiar?
I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they had 2 quarterbacks get hurt. And honestly, so I was looking back at this game, right? And I thought, I literally, because I didn't see it, I didn't watch the whole entire game. I thought Derek Burnett caught a pass. I thought that was really dope for a second, but then I realized, no, that's not Derek Burnett. That would be Deontay Burnett, and that made me really disappointed. But you know what's funny about this game? Only one of the receiver, then Greg Ward, caught a pass, and that was just Burnett. Like that's crazy to me. That only one other receiver caught a pass. Only the tight ends and running backs otherwise caught passes.
Yeah, and there were a lot of times McCown was just dropping back and nobody was open. Mind you, Zach Ertz was hurt too, so it was basically just Dallas Goedert and the running backs, and Miles Sanders was hurt too. This really was just a season as bad as the Steelers dealt with as far as injuries went. The Eagles had it worse than anybody else in the league, I think.
Easily, their cornerback room was so disgustingly hurt early on, and then as they got healthy, the wide receiver room just got disgustingly hurt. The Eagles did not have luck in that regard.
So once went down, it was kind of apparent that they were going to struggle to move the ball. They put up 9 points, and their defense held up pretty valiantly. The Seahawks struggled to run the ball against a good Eagles run defense. They only managed 64 yards. 45 of them came from Russell Wilson, and 22 of those came on one run. So you look at just the running backs themselves, they averaged just over a yard per carry. Travis Homer had 12 on 11, and Marshawn Lynch had 7 on 6. And a long of 5. Yeah. So most of those other runs, he was losing yardage. So the Seahawks could not get anything going on the ground. So as you might expect, it was up to Russell Wilson. He dazzled with 325 yards, a touchdown, only sacked once. He was pretty darn good on the day, and a lot of those yards came to DK Metcalf. I loved that final third down pass play that clinched the game, a deep ball to DK Metcalf. It was a perfect play call and perfectly executed. And they as they have done all season, they won a close game. It might not have been the best competition, but a win is a win, and they're one step closer to their ultimate goal.
Oh yeah, I thought that the Seahawks, other than the running backs, played really well, and DK Metcalf is a really exciting player to watch. I think that he's going to be a really great wide receiver. It's one of the few times where a developmental pick really works out, because obviously DK was an athletic freak coming out of college. But people said that he didn't have the route running. He wasn't going to ever do anything in the NFL. And he's proven people wrong. I don't think he ever should have fell out of the second round. I think he should have been a late second-round pick and definitely not a late third-round pick. The Seahawks got a deal with that, and, I mean, he looks good. He looks like they have a nice piece for Russell Wilson to replace Doug Baldwin. The Seahawks as a whole, they also got 7 sacks in this game. They did exactly what they needed to do against the Eagles' offensive front, against a weakened one. I mean, without Brandon Brooks and with their tackle situation, they just really struggled on the other side of the ball to contain the Seahawks defense.
DK Metcalf seems like Mike Wallace dipped in Martavis Bryant, if I'm going to make a Steelers analogy. He's fast like both of them, but he's also big and strong like Bryant was.
And that's kind of crazy. It's just, this is why the teams draft these developmental guys, because if they could come on, like it's nuts. They could be like the best players in the league by far. They're just athletic freaks.
So looking forward, the Eagles finish at 9-7. They should still be a pretty solid team next year once they get everyone back healthy.
I think that they should definitely compete. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the Cowboys come back and compete in that division with them.
Because you're not going to be around to do the preview for next weekend's game, you'll be in Florida. Enjoy the time down there. I wanted to get your thoughts on next week's game with the Seahawks. They're going to be in Green Bay taking on the Packers, so the number 2 seeded Packers. It's an interesting one because the Packers have been a team that hasn't really impressed a lot of hasn't really impressed the national media this year. They're 13-3, but they haven't really been all that spectacular. The Seahawks haven't been all that great themselves, but they're 2 teams that have found ways to win. And on Sunday in Lambeau, it's the last game of the week. How do you feel about it? Just initial thoughts. Green Bay's a -4 right now.
For me, I don't feel good about Green Bay. I really don't. I know Seahawks are injured. I'm really hoping Dwayne Brown comes back for this game. I'm not hopeful for that, but I would feel a lot better if their offensive line got a little bit better. But I'm still going to pick the Seahawks +4 in this game because I just think that the Seahawks are going to be overall the better team. I just don't like the Packers. I think they're overrated. Like, they haven't been playing well. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been playing well. Like, the only guy that's been playing well and inconsistently at best is Aaron Jones. I like Aaron Jones. It's just, I don't know. I feel like I like the Seahawks team as a whole better. The Packers defense has been playing pretty good altogether with the 2-star pass rushers they got, but I feel like the Seahawks are going to keep it at least within 4 if not win.
Let's go to the other NFC game from this past weekend. We got the Vikings and the Saints. This was a game that I felt like most people talking about thought that if there was going to be a blowout on this past weekend, it was going to be this game. And you and I both thought that the Saints were going to cruise to victory in this one. You've got Kirk Cousins in a big-time game, a playoff game in the Superdome, and the Saints, definitely not going to be happy about the fact that they've had 2 heartbreaking losses in the playoffs. Well, that's why they play the games, Austin. The Vikings come out with a 26-20 victory, led most of the way, and Kirk Cousins, not the most spectacular numbers in the world, but 19 of 31, 242, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He didn't kill the team, and he threw a great pass in overtime that resulted in the Vikings winning a playoff game in the Superdome. And the Saints come away with a very disappointing loss again in heartbreaking fashion for the 3rd year in a row. Where do you want to start here? You want to start with Cousins? You want to start with Breeze and the Saints and their disappointments? Where do you want to go first?
Start with Breeze and the Saints. I have no idea how they didn't score at least 30 on this team. It didn't even make sense. Minnesota was down Mike Hughes and Mackenzie Alexander in the secondary. They had to put Andrew Sandejo as their slot cornerback for a lot of this game, and he's a safety. I have no idea how the Saints struggled so mightily against this defense. And, I mean, I can tell you how. The Saints' offensive line failed in this game. I have no idea what tore them apart, how Danielle Hunter, who is a really good pass rusher, Eric Kendricks and stuff like that, tore them apart. Because up to this game, the tackles on the Saints had not allowed a single sack all year. They allowed 3 in this game. They allowed 3. I really put this loss on the offensive line for the Saints. I mean, it's a team game and every facet struggled, but I had never seen such a breakdown from guys that were playing at an elite level. Like I said, 0 sacks from either tackle this entire year from the Saints. And then in this game, they gave up 3. Like, I have no idea how that actually happened, but it was just kind of crazy to me. Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin just destroyed them.
They didn't really do much on the ground either. Just 12 rushes for running backs. Kamara and Murray just had 42 yards on the ground. Kamara had the 1 touchdown. Taysom Hill had 4 for 50. One of them was a 28-yard run. But if you take away the 2 big plays from Taysom Hill, the Saints really just did not move the ball all that well.
Not at all. I mean, it's just disappointing. It felt like Brees threw a lot, but it wasn't even like that efficient. And
he averaged less than
Mike
10 yards
Thomas
of completion.
I'm sorry, what?
I was just saying he averaged less than 10 yards of completion, and I think you were about to say, Michael Thomas, he still had his catches, but he certainly did not go off.
It's just 7 catches for 70 yards, which is a nice stat line, but it's not like his crazy stat lines that he should have put up against a team that was so banged up and injured in the defensive back area. It's just, I don't know, man. Like, I still am confused about this loss. I still don't really know how the Vikings did it.
And what's wild is that even though the Saints were down 10 in the fourth quarter and they were struggling as much as they did, they still came back to tie it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a chance, and then it was over.
Yeah, the lovely NFL's overtime, so the Saints didn't get a chance to get the ball back. So let's kind of shift gears here now to the other side of the ball. The Vikings came out with a purpose in this game. They ran the ball down the Saints' throat. It wasn't the most eye-popping stats, 40 for 136, but they were committed to it. Dalvin Cook had 28 for under 100, but they just stuck with it. They kind of force-fed him and made sure that they did what they had to do, and they were efficient enough to keep moving the chains. And through the air, Kirk Cousins, as we already mentioned before, efficient. Adam Thielen came through with a big game. Stephon Diggs was pretty quiet in this one. But again, it was the offense, as it has all season, living through the ground game and doing what it had to do in the passing game. 26 points, it's a good day for the offense, especially in the Superdome. And, like I said, he didn't light up the stat sheet, but Kirk Cousins, I had him ranked as the worst quarterback going into this week, and I was quite clearly wrong about that. I don't think anyone saw this kind of game coming from him, and it quite literally is a career-defining game. No matter what happens the rest of the way for Cousins, he'll always have this game, and there's got to be no greater feeling in the world for him to get that kind of monkey off his back. And of course, he's still got other games to play, but this one had to feel good.
Oh yeah, Kirk Cousins, obviously his mantra has always been he can't win on prime time, he can't win under the lights, he can't win in important situations or in the playoffs. So this is good for him to get that monkey off his back, like you said, be able to get that win. And it was against a really good team too. Obviously, like we said at the beginning of the podcast, no 13-3 team has ever lost on Wild Card Weekend. It was the first time ever. So that was pretty impressive in itself. And overall, I mean, he did what he had to do. I think, personally, I think he ranked perfectly where I ranked at quarterbacks. He was better than both Josh Allen and Tom Brady. That's basically how he performed against compared to all the other quarterbacks. I mean, he might have actually outperformed Drew Brees, if I'm being honest.
Oh,
Drew
he
Brees
did.
Might have been,
he definitely did.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, so Drew Brees falls down the list. So my quarterback list wasn't perfect for that, but yeah, still, regardless, it was good enough to win, and I mean, good for the Vikings. They get to advance and get a chance against, I believe, the 49ers, right?
Yep, yeah, that's right. It's the 6-1 seeds.
Yeah.
So
they'll get a chance.
One last thing that I thought it was kind of sadistically funny, but that touchdown pass in overtime where Rudolph kind of pushed off and they called it a touchdown and they had that quick little review for the pass interference. I was just like, this is so fitting that this is going to happen. I was like, they're not going to overturn it and they're going to complain about it a lot, and I get it, but I was like, it's so fitting that this is what's happening. It's like, it had to happen. I knew something like that was going to happen.
It had to. There's always with the Saints. They just can't escape the stupid, like, things where the questionable, I say questionable, but like that call was fine. Just they can't escape those calls. They can't escape like having the refs involved and then crying about it.
So, the Saints, another great season in the regular season, down the tubes. Struggles from Drew Brees in this game. Again, it wasn't all his fault. Like you said, the offensive line played what I would assume was their worst game of the season. Their running backs were pretty inactive in this game. My X Factor, Latavius Murray, had just 21 yards on the ground. Did he even catch a pass? I don't think he did. No, he didn't. So, just not another.
He had one catch for 4 yards.
Oh,
Sorry.
he did? Oh, look at I see.
Yeah,
him
one
there.
catch for 4.
I see him there. Look at him doing stuff.
Caught one. There you go.
But I mean, first let's talk about Drew Brees, because he is, 41 now? Is that how old he is?
Something like that. He's up there.
So we know that the arm strength is kind of gone with him. He's still been, accurate as ever, and he's been pretty solid this year. But he was mum about his future. What do you think is going to go on with the Saints? Because they've got an interesting situation with Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, they could always try to get another quarterback if they want. They don't know if Drew Brees is going to play next year. What do you think is kind of the feeling on Brees right now as we stand?
I feel like they're going to hope for Brees to retire, and if he doesn't, I think they're still going to move on from him. I think it's like a Troy Polamalu, where it's like, please just retire, just please do it. Like where they kind of want to force his hand, and even though Brees probably still wants to play, I think. So I feel like that's going to happen because I'm pretty sure they're ready for Teddy. I mean, Teddy is their future for now. At least it looks like it's about time to start the transition. Not saying that Drew Brees is a bad quarterback, but you got to start getting Teddy Bridgewater groomed in there at some point. I don't know. I feel like Teddy Bridgewater's ready. We saw him go 6-0. He can manage this team.
I was talking with Jesse, and I wish I had him on right now because I want to kind of get his thoughts. I didn't really get a chance to pick his brain as much about this as I wanted to. He wasn't as sold on Teddy Bridgewater going forward, believe it or not. He actually doesn't really want him to be the future of the team. Isn't that wild?
I love Teddy too close. I'd love to hear why he doesn't like Bridgewater, but I don't know. I do understand because he was more of a game manager in that 6-game streak. I'm not saying that those 6 games were won because of him. He was more managing the game, but he's still a good quarterback, and I think Drew Brees is just getting older. But I don't know.
Go ahead.
Just think all you need for this team right now is a game manager. Even if that's all Teddy Bridgewater does, it's all they need.
But isn't that what happened last year? I'm trying to remember the NFC Championship game last year. The Saints scored, but they weren't scoring a ton. They still gave up, 23, 26 points in that game? Maybe, I don't know. See, I think part of the concern was Jesse was also looking at what Kyle Allen did through, 5 or 6 games himself, and it was really good, and then it just fell apart. I'm not saying that he thinks that's what's going to happen, but I think the way he sees it right now is even Drew Brees in decline still gives you a really good chance. And even though he struggled in this game, like we said, it wasn't all on him. It's just tough because you look at their last 3 seasons, they've had Super Bowl caliber teams, I thought, in each of the last 3 years, including this year. I mean, this was my Super Bowl champion. This is the team I picked to win it all, and they're ousted.
Both of ours.
Yeah, they're ousted right here. This was the most shocking result of the week in my mind, and I don't understand. 13 wins. Is it possible? If Drew Brees comes back, this is still a really good roster, but a loss like this makes you wonder if if that window has closed with Brees.
Maybe it's just maybe next year they come back and maybe they're a little bit healthier. I don't know. I don't know if the 2 defensive linemen are going to make a difference. And Sheldon Rankins and I forget Davenport. If Davenport come back, if they're going to actually make a difference for this team, and then you never know what other injuries are going to occur next year when you come into this game. I don't know. Their window might be just closing. If they weren't able to win one of the past 3 years with the teams they've had, every year they've had that Super Bowl caliber team, like you said, that they always had a pretty good chance at winning it. And if they made it past the Rams, I'm pretty sure they would have had a better chance against New England. I don't know if they would have won. I think they would have had a better chance.
Closer. They were definitely a better matchup, yeah.
Yeah.
And
regardless,
the big hole still on this team, I'm not super sure about the defense, but on offense, it's still definitely the number 2 receiver.
Yeah, it's just really no one behind Michael Thomas.
It's tough.
Rely on him.
I mean, it's good to be in a scenario where you're talking about having a team that good, but the problem is it's still not an easy decision or situation. And Breeze himself could retire, but he also might not. So a lot's up in the air for the Saints right now, and it's for all the talk about how the Steelers, with the Killer B era, that was that 8-year stretch, are only winning 2 Super Bowls with Ben Roethlisberger. Here's an era with Drew Brees and the Saints that's 13, 14 years now and only 1 Super Bowl appearance, and very similar numbers between Peyton and Mike Tomlin as far as wins and playoff appearances and whatnot. This is, for all the disappointment both teams have been through, they're pretty similar mirrors of each other over the past decade plus.
Both teams have vastly underperformed at certain points. Like, I think in 2011 for the Steelers, this is one of the years for the Saints where they vastly underperformed. So there's that. They really are mirrors of each other.
But what's interesting is that besides the Patriots, are there any other organizations besides maybe the Packers over the past decade that have been better than these two in terms of just winning? I mean, yeah, there are Super Bowl champions like the Broncos, like the Eagles, or like the Ravens, but I struggle to think of organizations that have seen such consistent success and yet can still be considered disappointments.
Yeah, it's not really well heard of. There's not many teams like this, so yeah, the Saints are kind of like original.
Indeed, it's quite strange. And on the other side now, let's kind of get back to the Minnesota Vikings here. No one thought they'd be in this scenario to knock out the Saints in their stadium. They're going to I wouldn't say easy, I guess easier, but they're going to a less hostile environment in Santa Clara against the 49ers. Do you think they could pull it off again? I mean, it's not going to be easy, but then again, neither was this one. San Francisco is only getting a touchdown in this game. It should be pretty solid, I think. I think these are 2 pretty evenly matched teams and 2 relatively unproven quarterbacks in the big stage.
I think that Minnesota has a chance. I mean, any given Sunday, I didn't think they had a chance against New Orleans, and here they come in and then just win into overtime. So I think there's a chance. I still think in that game, though, the 49ers are going to have the edge. 49ers should be getting back Quan Alexander for this game again. Another guy who tore his pectoral in October and is going to be back for this game. So I think the 49ers are getting a boost on defense, which they've already been really good on defense. And I think overall that the 49ers are going to win that game and they're going to cover. I think they're going to win by more than a touchdown because I think the Vikings are going to come back down to earth, and I think the Saints are just I think the Saints just lost because they outplayed themselves, to be honest. I mean, the offensive line just really fell apart, stuff like that. But so I think the 49ers are going to beat Minnesota maybe by 10 points, maybe 23-13, or to throw out a score. So I think 49ers cover.
All right, well, we just talked about one murky quarterback situation. How about we go with another one? So the night game on Saturday featured the upstart Tennessee Titans and the aging dynasty of the New England Patriots. And I knew, even though I picked the Patriots and I said until they lose, I'm not going to believe it because I've seen this bite my backside before, like it's bitten everyone before, but this year truly was different for the Patriots. Even though they started, 8 or 9-0, there was just something different about them, especially after they lost Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon, or rather released them, I should say. This team just could not function offensively. And what's strange is their first, 3 of their first 4 drives, I need to double check right now. They had a field goal on their opening drive, then they had a touchdown on their second. So yeah, 3 of their 4 drives, they scored all their points. And then it looked like they were like, man, this team's, it's the same Patriots that we've always known. But then the Titans made some defensive adjustments, and they kept the Patriots in check. Tom Brady was not sacked in this game. He wasn't pressured a whole lot, which is what's insane to me, is that he got pressured at times, but he also wasn't getting smacked around in the pocket like we are used to seeing when Brady struggles. He only got hit 4 times, and he dropped back 37 times. That's not a high pressure rate at all. And on the ground, the Patriots moved the ball a bit, a pretty solid amount, but still under 100 yards on the day. this Patriots offense just was not in sync following their fourth drive of the game, and they really did nothing from that point on. And again, it's the same story as it's been all year with them.
Yeah, and honestly, it's just their wide receivers aren't very good. Tom Brady's not playing very good. There's just a bunch of combination things. And also, I really, really, really would like people to stop overvaluing Edelman. Edelman is not that great of a wide receiver. He didn't deserve a Pro Bowl. He's not that great. I don't know why people forget that he leads the league in drops, but he's not that good. He also fumbled once in this game, but he was able to get it back. But regardless, it's just the Patriots need to redo their wide receiver room, and they might need a new quarterback. We don't know. The Patriots are iffy on whether Tom Brady is going to be returning or not. And honestly, if I'm the Patriots, do I even want him to return? I don't know. I don't know if it's really just how bad the wide receivers have been and no Gronkowski to make up for it or what. But, like, Tom Brady hasn't looked like the Tom Brady that most people know. It's just he hasn't been very good. The offense has been anemic and just overall not very good. But anyhow, just really... I really can't harp on them anymore. It's just the offense is bad. Their defense is perfect. Their defense was great. I mean, they only allowed 14 points in the game. It is what it is. And Mohamed Sanu finishes Patriots' career without a touchdown, so there's that.
Yeah, I think a lot about the Patriots offense. I think a lot about what we saw from the Steelers offense this year. The main difference was just that Tom Brady, even though he struggled a lot by his standards, he was still substantially better than Devlin Hodges and Mason Rudolph when they were at their low points. But he was still not very, especially down the stretch, he was not good. I mean, am I wrong to make that comparison? It's just we wouldn't have made that normally because you think of Tom Brady much differently than you do of Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges. But this offense was very similar with that, and they weren't a great rushing team this year. They were solid, but outside of Sony Michel, no one was really running the ball with authority this season.
Yeah, no, they are very similar to the Steelers offense in that they were inept and unable to do stuff like that. I just think that overall, they really do match the Steelers well because
there are problems everywhere.
Offensive...
There's problems everywhere, just like
really
the Steelers.
Do have problems.
And it's just, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just like I'm thinking more and more about it, and I feel like it's just a truth.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really have the excuse that they had a third string quarterback starting. It's just their wide receivers might have been a little bit worse, but it's just they still, as much as I just harped on Edelman coming in, he's still he's on par with Deontay Johnson. He had good seasons. It's just this season wasn't that great one.
I mean, everywhere you look, like Mohamed Sanu was really disappointing. Philip Dorsett is what he was. N'Keal Harry was a disappointment, but the Patriots always seem to struggle when they draft receivers. And then their tight ends.
Do struggle.
And then their tight ends. Their top tight end this year was Benjamin Watson, who wasn't even on the roster for most of the season or part of the season. They just never could get anything going, and the ground game was never sufficient enough. And that's the thing, is that the Titans' defense is an aging and not as good unit, but they were coached up well by Mike Vrabel, the former New England Patriot and Pittsburgh Steeler himself, and they had that huge goal line stand. One of my favorite prospects coming out a couple years ago, Rashaan Evans, had a big game with 10 tackles and a big tackle on the goal line. So, say what you will about the Titans, it might not be a great unit, but they were well coached and they schemed up well, and they did what they had to do against the Patriots after those first few drives. And the Patriots could just never get anything going. Those 13 points after that fourth drive, I don't know exactly how many yards they had after that. If you wait just a second, I can try to do some math here and figure out exactly how many yards they had from that point after.
Sure. That goal line stand was a thing of beauty, though, from the Titans. That on the 1 yard line, they held the Patriots to 3 points on 4 attempts. I'm sorry, 3, because they got tackled for a loss and they opted to kick the field goal. That was a thing of beauty, if I'm being honest. I was shocked that they were able to hold them like that, and to make it so that they got a tackle for a loss, so that they couldn't go for it on fourth down, or if they went for it on fourth down, it was way riskier, that it was less likely they were going to get it. I thought that was amazing. I thought the Titans did great in this game and were really able to adjust to what the Patriots were doing.
So the Patriots, this is from the last drive of the first half to the end of the game, just 108 yards.
Oof.
And yeah, just not very good. And what's interesting is that we can kind of transition to the other side now, is that the Titans offense was even worse, if that makes any sense. It was basically just 6 people, and by that I mean the starting 5 offensive line and Derrick Henry. Those guys owned the day, and they dominated the Patriots. That was really it. Everywhere else, the passing game was virtually non-existent except for 2 catches from Ferkser for the Titans. He caught 2 passes. One of them was a touchdown. The other was essentially the game clincher on the final drive on the Titans' final drive of the game. I mean, besides that, there was nothing to write home about with this offense. The hottest receiver in the NFL, A.J. Brown, caught 1 pass for 4 yards. Ryan Tannehill, besides the 1 touchdown pass to that one at the end, which was they were both great throws, was non-existent. It was all Derrick Henry besides that.
Literally, there's no other way to put it. I mean, Tannehill only threw for 72 yards in a game. It's like one of the smallest amounts that the Patriots have ever lost to. It's just incredible that they were able to just rely on the back of Derrick Henry because he's been the hottest back in the league in the second half of the year. It's just he's been playing out of his mind, and I mean he almost got to the threshold that I predicted for him. I predicted that Derrick Henry would get a 250 scrimmage yards, and he only got 204. Like he only carried his team for 200 yards. Like it's just crazy stuff. He's putting up crazy numbers. And they really relied on him in this game, and I feel like they've been relying on him, and it's just working. Derrick Henry is a weird back. He's a back that gets better as the year goes on.
Yeah, he's just one of those. He's literally, I think of him like I think about like Jerome Bettis and Earl Campbell dipped in like, I don't know, a dude that can, like Tony Dorsett, like a dude that can run for 99-yard touchdowns. It's one of the weirdest things ever because he's definitely not the fastest guy, but he can still rip off explosive runs like those speedsters do.
He's just so athletic, too.
So, the 71 passing yards against for the Patriots defense for the Titans had in this game, that's the lowest passing yards the team has had in a playoff victory since 10 years ago when the Ravens beat the Patriots in the wild card game. Joe Flacco in the Ravens passing attack had 34 yards.
Incredible gameplay.
You want to hear this? You want to hear the stat line here for Flacco?
Sure.
4 of 10, 34 yards,
Sure.
No sacks, 1 pick. They literally didn't need him to throw the ball. Ray Rice had 22 for $159 and 2 TDs. Willis McGahee had 20 for 62 himself in a T.
Oh my God, I don't even remember this game like that. I don't remember it being so run heavy.
Yeah, I remember this game well because I was like, all right, it'll probably be a close game, and then Ray Rice takes the first snap, 80 yards, and the Ravens are up 24-0 after 1 quarter. They absolutely ran them right out of the building, and Brady had 3 picks. The Ravens, despite having just 34 passing yards, still had, how much is this? They still had 70 more total yards than the Patriots did. The Patriots had less than 200 yards of offense on the day.
That's incredible stuff. Amazing.
And here we are with something similar to that where it's basically just the ground game and essentially Derrick Henry. I mean, what more can you say about the man? I mean, everyone knew in the building, everyone knew watching. He was getting the ball at least 30 times in this game, and he delivered. 35 for, 204? The man was unstoppable.
Literally, quite literally. Again, Derrick Henry has been the best second half running back this year, and he finished off last year strong too. Just a really, really good second half running back.
So, what do you want to talk about next? Do you want to talk about where the Patriots going, or do you want to talk about the Titans matchup with the Ravens first? We'll get to both, but which one do you want to address first?
Let's go to the Titans matchup with the Ravens.
Okay. So another 6-1 matchup. This is the late game on Saturday. Baltimore's getting 10. The Titans are one of those interesting teams where you feel like maybe they could be a team that could kind of compete with the Ravens because with a guy like Derrick Henry, you could also shorten the game just like the Ravens like to.
Yeah, this game is very interesting, and a part of me, as sad as it is, was kind of glad they made it over the Steelers because I don't think this happens. I don't think the Steelers make it past New England.
Nope.
Not even close. Yeah, it's just, and you just see New England going on, and seeing New England get eliminated was really nice. And now going forward, I feel like the Titans have a real chance against the Ravens. Titans are probably the hottest team in the league right now, which is so weird to say. Coming into the playoffs, they might have been one of the hottest teams coming into it. I just think that they're a team that could. I think they're a team that could make it to the Super Bowl, and I think that'd be a fun team to make it. Just see Tannehill go through the playoffs after being considered a mediocre quarterback all his life, and just run on the backs of Derrick Henry. I think that'd be dope, and I think that they could beat the Ravens. So I will be taking the Titans plus 10. I don't know if they win. I think overall the Ravens will still win. I feel like the Titans have one of the best chances of beating the Ravens as anyone else in this entire playoff bracket. And that includes the NFC in a Super Bowl matchup. I think that this is going to be a really fun game, and I'm really excited for it. So it's the one I'm most excited for next week.
11 years ago, the number 6 seed Baltimore Ravens went into Tennessee to take on the Titans, who had the AFC's top seed at 13-3. And the Ravens, with the rookie quarterback Joe Flacco, came out victorious in a nice defensive struggle. So a little playoff history right there. That was a fun game I remember watching. And now the roles 11 years later are reversed. This time it'll be in Baltimore. So I think it'll be a good game as well. Let's go back to the other side here. Well, we just had a conversation about Drew Brees and the Saints' future. The Patriots have a very interesting future of their own. Tom Brady's not under contract. They don't really have a successor on the roster right now. It's hard. Brady says he wants to play. I suppose it's possible, but I don't see how he could end up playing with another team. And to be quite honest with you, in his current condition, I'm not sure he would work anywhere else.
It's going to be tough for him. I mean, I'm sure a team is still going to pay him.
Oh,
regardless of
100%.
if he deserves it or not.
Some teams, I feel like, would consider signing him just for the marketing standpoint, like the fact that you're bringing in Tom Brady to your team, even if he doesn't play well. I could still see some teams possibly taking a chance, not just for that, but that's certainly a factor, I think.
I think so. I'm trying to just bring more markets. So there's definitely a chance of that. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, I still think he has some playing good. I don't think that it's all on his wide receivers, because granted, there are worse wide receiver rooms, I think. I mean, people might disagree with that, but I think that the wide receivers in Mohamed Sanu, Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry, I think you could get worse than that, if I'm being honest with you. But anyhow, I just don't know what Tom Brady does. If I were him and I wanted to play, I think I'd stick with the Patriots instead of getting embarrassed somewhere else. But I don't really know what's going to happen.
Because he seems like I'm trying to compare him to Peyton Manning. The end of his career, he's a lot closer to Peyton Manning's last season and a half, if you will, than he was, when Peyton Manning started with Denver. Like, Manning had 2.5, 3 years that were really good with the Broncos, and that last year was awful. And then it feels like Brady's a lot closer to that end. I'm not sure how much longer he could really last with another team. And just the system itself, like I said, I'm not sure that he'd be able to succeed anywhere else. And that's the thing, though. If the Patriots are dead set on moving on, I think there's a chance he wouldn't even be offered a contract.
That would be interesting. I don't think that's going to happen, but with how he's played, it is definitely possible. But I just think his name is going to stop that from happening.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It's very interesting. It'd be a lot different if they had a successor on the roster, but they don't. Do you think they trade for somebody, or do you think they try to draft one?
Honestly, they probably try and draft one. Or maybe they're happy with their guy that they picked from Auburn.
Jarrett Stidham?
Yeah, that guy. Maybe they hope that he develops a little bit better. I mean, the one game he played in this year where the Patriots were blowing out, he was bad. He threw a pick 6 against the Jets. So, I don't know how much they trust in him.
What about Bill Belichick? There's been nothing seemingly on the horizon about him retiring, but I can't imagine he'll be doing this for a ton longer.
I think Belichick is going to stay put. I don't think he has a reason to leave. I think Belichick is good for the Patriots, obviously. I think that's I don't think that's a hot take at all. So I think he's going to stay put. I can't see him leaving.
I got to be honest. If I had a vote, I think I'd vote for him for Coach of the Year, as crazy as that sounds. Maybe.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, this offense was basically the Steelers' offense. And they went further. They won 12 games with essentially no offense.
That is pretty impressive.
He won't win it because he's Bill Belichick and because the Patriots' expectations are different than anyone else's. But I think that he at least deserves consideration when you think about how well the defense played this year, how well the special teams played this year, and just how horrible the offense was. Anemic is just a good way to describe it. He did everything he could to get this team in position to make another deep playoff run. And the only reason that we aren't talking about it is because the expectations are so much higher for this team.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right.
That being said, he still wouldn't be in my top 3, but he'd still consider. I know I just said I'd vote for him. I'd think about voting for him is what I'm saying. If I'm making a list of the top 3, he probably wouldn't, but I'd definitely think about having him in there as the number 3. I think Harbaugh and Shanahan are the top 2, and then third I'd either have Belichick or Sean McDermott.
That makes sense.
So, all right. Let's move on to the last game of the week, which was the first one played between the Texans and the Bills, a 22-19 overtime thriller, if you will. The Bills got out to a 16-0 lead. The Texans came roaring back, and then it was just a mess in overtime. And the wildest play I think I've ever seen in recent memory, when Deshaun Watson gets belted and then gets hit again, and the second hit keeps him upright where he was definitely going down if that second hit hadn't have occurred. He spun out of a sack and then tossed a pass to Tywan Jones, who ran 34 yards and set up the game-winning field goal. This game was everything. It was entertaining, but it also was not a cleanly played game whatsoever. There were a lot of erratic moments, but in the end, the Texans' talent wins out.
I'm sorry for ranking Deshaun Watson under Carson Wentz. I do apologize. I watched this game, and just watching Deshaun Watson run with the ball in his hands is just incredible, and he's such a good quarterback. So I'm sorry for that. I think he moved up my quarterback rate because, I guess I just hadn't seen him play in a while, because the last time I watched him play, I was like, damn, that dude is good. And then, I don't know. I figured that because Wentz was playing with worse guys around him, that he was that I'd rank him ahead. But man, Watson is an incredible quarterback. It's just he's so good. He's so fun to watch. And he really got the Texans going. He got he did that touchdown entirely on his own. He ran for it, and then he got the 2-point and ran for that as well. Incredible gameplay. And that play that you were talking about was insane as well, where he just spins out of 2 tackles. Just incredible from Deshaun Watson, and the Buffalo Bills blew a 16-point third-quarter lead.
Yeah, so this game looked like it was going to be a snoozer. The Bills were well out in front, but then they kind of took their foot off the gas, and the Texans came right back in it. What did you see from the Bills that you liked or didn't like? At least, obviously you had to like what you saw early on, but after that first drive, the offense kind of cooled off.
Josh Allen, I thought, really underperformed in this game. I thought he was doing way too much, and even his coach said that. At the end of the game, there was just this YOLO, even Booger called it a YOLO throw. It just threw it straight up to Patrick DeMarco, the fullback, in double coverage. I don't know what you're doing, dude, but why would you throw to the fullback in double coverage? We need more of that. It should have been intercepted.
We need more plays like that. More fullbacks and deep routes.
Yeah, more fullbacks on deep routes. But regardless, you don't throw to him in double coverage. So I have no idea what was happening there. And I felt like Josh Allen just wasn't smart with the football. And that fumble was big, too. That fumble that led to points for the Texans, that it looked like the Bills might have been able to get a field goal before that. That wasn't good for them. It's just I didn't like Josh Allen in this game. He's exactly where I thought he would be. I think I ranked Tom Brady above him. I think Josh Allen would have been the worst quarterback for me if I were to re-rank them for this week. I wasn't happy with his play even though his stat line wasn't necessarily terrible. 24 for 46 or 264 yards, no touchdowns, but a fumble. It's just, I don't know. I wasn't happy with his play.
I thought he was fine until the moment he fumbled. And it's funny, I didn't even see the fumble. I went in to take a shower and I texted you. I texted you right as it was happening. I didn't see it, but I was like, this feels like such a game. This feels like a game that Buffalo, it would be so Buffalo to lose this game. And I step out of the shower and you told me that he fumbled or something like that. And I think the Texans had just turned it into a field goal or something like that. But it was 16-11 at that point. And it's here we go. This is how it's going to be. And I think, quite honestly, that we saw a team that was more playoff experience come through, and that experience helped them. And we saw a team that was not very experienced in the playoffs, starting at the top. And I do want to get to Allen, but first I want to, I love Sean McDermott. He's one of my favorite coaches in the NFL. I have a huge problem with the way he handled that second-to-last drive at the end of the second half. So tell me if you remember this situation. It was a third and 13 at the Houston 28 at the 2-minute warning. Or wait, they were at the Houston 25 with the 2nd and 10. This is something that only the Steelers offense has done this year, I feel like something like that, where they take a 2nd down and 10 with prime field position and they turn it into nonsense where the ball's on the other side of the field again. And you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I am.
So it was a 2nd and 10. Frank Gore loses 3 yards, 2-minute warning, and then on 3rd and 13, there was an incomplete pass where John Feliciano illegally touched the ball, and then Josh Allen got called for intentional grounding. That was just a mess of a play. So 4th and 27, there's 1:35 to go. If I'm not mistaken, the Bills had all 3 of their timeouts at this point, right?
I believe so, yep.
Yeah. So you have 3 options facing a 4th and 27 from the Texans 42, 1:35 to go. Option 1, you can punt the ball and try to pin the Texans back and try to get one more stop from hopefully prime field position, as the Texans likely get the ball from the shadow of their own end zone. B, you could attempt a, 42, 52. This is about a 59-yard field goal with Steven Hauschka, who hasn't been the most accurate kicker in the league this year, but you're also playing in a dome. Or C, you can go for it on a 4th and 27. I can't remember the last time I've seen that. I think the Ravens converted something like that 6 years ago. But that was a very freaky play, obviously, when you're converting a 4th and 27. So I understand in the heat of the moment you're going to make strange decisions sometimes, but Austin, I think common sense prevails in doing two of those 3 options. And what would those be?
I would definitely punt it and or try to kick the 59-yard field goal, not go for it on 4th and 27.
And the Bills went for it on 4th and 27. Josh Allen lost 19 yards on a sack, by the way. First of all, obviously you can't take a sack there. Second of all, I'm pretty sure the tackles just decided, they were like, we're not going to block this play. And they didn't. So Allen got murdered and lost 19 yards, and somehow the ball ended up on the Bills' side of the field after that. That was a really spectacular sequence there. So not only did Allen and the Bills struggle on that last play, it was born out of a terrible coaching decision, and in my mind showed that maybe McDermott not necessarily panicked, that might be too strong of a word, but kind of rushed through his thoughts and wasn't as composed as he needs to be. He is a young coach. I think that this will be a good learning experience for him, but I think you look at that decision and you look at the way the team played, because even that next drive where they went down, they kicked a field goal, it was like pulling teeth, to be honest with you. I think McDermott was kind of a little flustered, and I think the team followed suit. Like I said, it's an inexperienced team, and I think they showed it in the waning moments of this game.
Yeah, it really was an inexperienced team. I mean, the Texans have been here on the past 4 Saturdays, in the last the playoff appearances that they've had, and they've known what this is like, and just felt like under the pressure the Bills crumbled. Like you said, you just can't do that there. And everything went wrong on that. It got as bad as it could have gotten. Getting a 19-yard sack to put them into Bills' territory was absolutely terrible. I don't really know why you go for it there on 4th and 27. It just seems like the pressure got to him, because it just seems like the thinking wasn't there, the rationality wasn't there. I mean, even if you kicked the field goal, they would have had worse position than the Bills ended up giving them with the sack. So it's just like you might as well just attempted the 59-yard field goal and
if he misses it, so what? You're still in better shape. And I know that that's a results bias thing, but how often are you going to convert a 4th and 27? It just screams like they panicked, you know? And I think
you just go to prevent.
Exactly. That's all there is to it. Or another thing that you could do, you could try to blitz 5 or 6, run that zero coverage thing, and make them throw it quickly. He's not going to be able to throw it. He's not going to be able to sit back there and wait for someone to get that far down the field. You have to throw it quick. So, I mean, the defense you're playing right into their hands. And, I mean, I think punting was the right option because you have a higher percentage chance of getting the ball in better field position there if you get it back. And, yeah, you wouldn't have time. I don't know. Like I said, it was just a panicky kind of move, and it showed throughout the team because they came out and they played well, but when they started to face adversity, they struggled. And they did end up tying the game, and we'll get to that last drive in a second. But it was like pulling teeth. Meanwhile, the Texans, who were down 16-0, they showed some resolve. They came up with the big plays. They tied the game. They won it overtime. But the Bills, it just felt like they not necessarily folded, but you could tell this was a team that wasn't as experienced at the end of the day.
Yeah, you know what else is good about punting there, too? If you were able to pin them deep, maybe you get them at, like, the 5-yard line. The Bills had 7 sacks on the day. There is a higher than average chance that there could be a safety if they're able to pin them deep. It's not a very high chance because you have to first of all get them within the 5, and then second of all get a sack down there. But like it's just I just there's so much wrong with that. The Bills' pass rush was destroying the Texans' offensive line in this game. It was disgusting. I think Jerry Hughes had 3 sacks in this game. Like it was like his rebirth. Like he was young again.
Yeah, a safety was definitely not out of the realm of possibility.
Exactly. There were so many good things they could have done, and they chose the worst option.
So the Bills did manage to get the ball back after turning it over. And oddly enough, it's the first play after the Texans failed to convert a 4th and 1, which a lot of people hated that going for it on 4th and 1 there. I didn't. You know, if you get that first down, you win the game. And with just a yard, I'd have liked my chances. I didn't hate that the Texans went for that.
No, I didn't hate that the Texans went for that either.
If that were 10 yards closer to the end zone, I wouldn't have been happy because they were at the Bills' 30, so this would have been a 47-yard field goal. If you're closer, like within 30 or 40 yards, I think I'd have trotted out the kicker. But it's not a sure thing from that far, so I am okay with them going for it there.
Yeah, no, it's not that far at all.
So then that first play of the Bills' next drive, there's that crazy Josh Allen run where he makes a nice play, and I'm thinking, okay. And then Will and I were watching. Both of us were not Bills fans. We almost had an aneurysm watching him lateral the ball like that. And Dawson Knox punched it out, which I'm pretty sure is a penalty. And the Bills are able to retain possession. But again, evidence of someone trying to do too much, maybe panicking a little bit. And it's just like, buddy, you don't do that. That's the worst thing to do.
Just trying to lateral the ball like it's just like some outside Thanksgiving football at your mom's house. Like, I don't know, man. Like, that was some wild ass stuff. This is part of the reason why I thought like Josh Allen was one of the worst quarterbacks on the weekend, or was the worst quarterback. It's just he wasn't ready for the big lights.
It definitely did not seem like it. But anyways, the Bills were able to get a field goal out of it, and they went back and forth 2 punts to start, and then the Texans were facing a 2nd and 6 at the Bills' 44, and that's when that big play happened. The Bills missed like 3 tackles on Tywan Jones's dash through the Bills' defense, and a 28-yard field goal. It was too easy to pass up, although it looked like the Texans were about to try to run it in, and I'm like, just what are you doing? They called the timeout, and Bill O'Brien made the right choice. But this is probably the wildest game, I think, of the weekend. Certainly an unorganized performance, and I don't really know what to think of it from either point of view. I mean, I guess from the Bills' perspective, it was a good season. They played well. I think this was a pretty good learning experience for them. I think they need to get some more perimeter weapons on the outside, and they need more growth from Josh Allen. But there's no reason for me to think they won't contend for the playoffs again next year.
I think there's a chance. I mean, the Patriots might be falling apart. You never know. The Patriots might not have a quarterback next year, so they could even win the division next year. We'll have to see. Might have a better chance to be able to play in Orchard Park. Wow, I can't speak. And other than that, and I just have one more comment on this game: is that Booger McFarland is an idiot. I really, really don't like his commentary. I forget what point in the game. I'm pretty sure it's about to go into overtime. It might have been in overtime already, but it's 3rd and 6, and the guy's like, I think if I'm the Bills, I'm going to run a draw play here and then spike the ball. It's 3rd down and 6. It's 3rd down. The problem there is that it's a turnover on downs if they do what he said. Like he's not even paying attention. He's just like, screw it. I'm just going to say some words and hope it sticks.
Yeah, so ESPN's broadcast team I felt like it's really suffered over the past couple of years. They lost their play-by-play guy in Sean McDonough, and of course their color commentator in John Gruden. I don't hate Joe Tessitore. I don't think he's that awful. I just don't think he's, I don't think he does anything to push the needle. And last year there was that horrible Booger Mobile stuff, and I felt like he was okay when he was on the field, but that was stupid. And then Jason Witten was terrible. But at least with Jason Witten, it's like, I don't really blame him. I mean, that's a guy who got paid a ton of money to come up and sit in the booth, and he had no experience. He was trying his best. I don't really have anything against Jason Witten. He struggled. But this is a guy in Booger McFarland who is supposed to be a seasoned guy. He comes up there and is talking straight nonsense, and it happens every week. Everything he says, it feels like, is just stupid, or like you want to hear what the craziest thing he said is? Even crazier than that, in my opinion. He said, what exactly did he say? Do you remember? He said something about
guys coming.
Oh my God. Let's get wait just a second. We can get into that. But he was talking about the way Josh Allen had played going into overtime, and he said, I like his poise. I like his poise. Moments after he lateraled the ball in what might have been the dumbest play of this weekend. I'm sorry. This dude should not be doing this job. Like, he was okay when he was the on-field guy last year. He's not cut out for this. He cannot do this next year because he is just not good at it. He's terrible.
I need another commentator.
I'm trying to find exactly what he said. But you want to talk about that?
The two guys coming?
Oh, my Lord. Yeah.
Really all you could say is, like, it was terrible. The choice of words, the drawings. Man makes 2 circles on 2 guys standing next to each other. Basically drew a penis on live TV and then said, yeah, there are 2 guys coming. Like, that was it. That was the clip. That was it. Like, the man's is, like, unaware of what he's doing. He literally was just, like, drew a penis on live TV and was just, like... I was just, I couldn't help but laugh. Like, it's like, Booker, no, please, no.
Yeah, so he said he loved Josh Allen's poise. Mind you, Josh Allen also threw, like, 5 passes that could have been picked off in the game.
Oh, yeah, there was a whole scenario that I forget the drive. It was early on in the game. I think they were only up 8-0 at the time. I'm sorry, not 8. I think they were only up 13-0 at the time. But there was, like, 2 throws in a row where Josh Allen should have thrown a pick 6. One to Bradley Roby, which Bradley Roby, I'd be pissed if I was him in this game. He should have had a few picks. And then one to J.J. Watt on the other side of the field. And they were back-to-back plays. Like, he threw it to the outside. Bradley Roby was going to house it. And then J.J. Watt, it goes straight through his arms. Like, I was like, he has his arms, and it goes in between the area between his arms and his head. I was like, how did he not at least knock it down? Like, I have no idea what happened on that play. But Josh Allen got severely lucky there. But, I mean, I guess in the end it didn't really matter since the Texans came back and win. But still.
I got a link I need to share with you, Austin. I just posted it in our outline. It's the 4 dumbest things Booger McFarland said this weekend. So, number 3 is Joe. Apparently, he was talking about a former running back named Joe Morris. He said he had great memories of Joe Morris of the Jets, when in fact Joe Morris had spent 7 seasons with the Giants, not the Jets. You hate to see it.
Oof. You do hate to see it.
So
number 2 is I love Josh Allen's poise.
Will and I were just like looking at each other like, is this dude watching the same game that we're watching? Doesn't feel like it. But anyways, we're kind of off on a tangent here because this isn't about boogers. It's about the two teams, and we already talked about the Bills. How about the Texans? They go into Kansas City, a rematch of a game which the Texans won earlier this year. The Chiefs are still 10-point favorites, though. You know, the Bears fans are rolling over right now. They're so sad because they still have Mitchell Trubisky, while these two guys, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, who have been far superior, are going to be battling it out for a right to go to the AFC Championship game. It just, every play is going to hurt them, and every time they see, they might not watch. They probably wouldn't watch, let's be honest.
I wouldn't watch an AFC game like that, especially if it means nothing for me. It's just going to hurt my feelings. So I would feel bad, but it should be a good game. I think overall the Chiefs are going to come out on top. The 10-point spread is rough. The picking up against that is rough. The Texans, here's how I think it's going to go. I think it's going to go exactly like it did against the Bills. I think the Texans are going to start hilariously slow. Like, they could be down 20-0 going into the second half, because they are a second-half team for sure. They were talking about it with how the difference in receiving in targets and yards and touchdowns for DeAndre Hopkins is in the first half and in the second half, because they just get better. I don't know what happens. The game plan is terrible. And the Texans are another team that were like the Steelers, that were really terrible on first drive points. Like, they were tied with the Steelers for like the worst, I believe, in week 14. I don't know how much has changed since then, but like, they aren't able to start fast at all. But I do think that this game could end like 28-20, like at the end of it. Like, I know that's a weird score to get the Chiefs back up 8 more points, so I guess I'll say 27-20. But like, so that's how I see the next game going. So I'm going to pick the Texans plus 10. Not exactly confident in it. I feel like the Chiefs are the way better team, and if the Texans don't get their offensive line situation back together, it's going to be really, really tough against the defense that's been playing well together. The solace you could take if you're Texans is that Juan Thornhill is out, so that their safety is a little bit weaker than it was. But I don't know if that's enough. I don't think there's a scenario where the Texans win this. I just think there's a bunch of scenarios where the Texans keep this within 10.
As we wrap this up, I just want to give an honorable mention, a shout-out to the MVP of this entire weekend for their team is Brett Kern, outside of Derrick Henry, of course. Brett Kern was awesome, man. He had 6 punts, and 4 of them were inside the 20, including a 58-yarder. I remember he had like an 85-yard punt against us in the preseason this year.
The dude's nuts, and he's all pro for a reason. He's a really, really good punter.
Dude literally blasts it like every time. Anyways, let's get to some news and notes around the league. Let's start with the Steelers. Randy Fichtner, not that there's anything surprising. He's under contract, but he's going to be returning. This will be the last year on his contract. I think he's here until Ben leaves. That's all there is to it, I think.
That's Ben's guy, so sorry to anyone that was really hoping for him to get fired, but it was just never happening.
Like I said, I think there's hope that he can improve. I mean, honestly, it can't really go much worse than it did this year, but he'll have talent again. And the one thing I was kind of repeating is that when you go through a year with a lot of struggles, and he did deal with a lot this year, I think that there's potential for him to do much better next year with better talent.
Yeah, I mean, playing with your third-string quarterback is hard. Next year's going to be a defining year for him. If he can work it better with Ben Roethlisberger and a bunch of young receivers that have developed for one more year, I mean, you get Deontay Johnson and Ben Roethlisberger work together a little bit more. So they really only got to play together for 2 games, and it was early for Deontay Johnson. He didn't get that many snaps. It was still Dante Moncrief at the time for at least a little bit. So it's honestly, next year's going to be a defining year for Randy Field.
If any coordinators go, I think it's Danny Smith.
Oh, 100%. The special teams has been underperforming for quite a while, and I mean, there's a breakdown at the end with punting and kick returns, and kick returns actually have been good forever, basically, it feels like, but it's just, there's a good chance that Danny Smith could get
let go, or not renewed, if you will. What's going on around the NFL, Austin? There's usually a good amount to get to this time of year.
A bunch of head coaching hires. I was confused because I thought the Cowboys fired Jason Garrett.
His contract is up, so he wasn't renewed.
So they're just waiting for him to sadly leave the building. So the Cowboys have moved Jason Garrett out of the head coaching position and have hired former Packers head coach Mike McCarthy to be their new head coach. Garrett has still not officially been fired from the team because his contract expires on January 14th. So next week is when he probably leaves the building. But still, just to tie this news with some other news, the Giants have finalized a deal to make Patriots special teams / wide receiver coach Joe Judge their head coach. They have requested to interview Jason Garrett as their offensive coordinator, since they still have to do that since he's still under contract for 7 more days. So just some news on that front.
That's interesting because, first of all, I don't know much about Joe Judge. I'm not going to make many comments about that. Jason Garrett, I think, is interesting because I feel like the Cowboys want to keep him in-house as some sort of position for him, but does he want to coach? And I feel like if he wants to coach, that's where he's going to go. It is interesting, though, because remember last month or 2 months ago, there was that rumor that the Giants would consider him as a head coach if he was available, and obviously they just hired a head coach, but it'd be interesting to see him go to New York after all this.
That really would be interesting. I think that I don't know if it's going to happen, but honestly, I think Jason Garrett would be best as a coordinator. I think he could still make it as a coordinator. I think shouldn't be a head coach at this time. He's just been mediocre for far too long.
Marvin Lewis snubbed for the Cowboys job, though.
Oh my God, that would have been hilarious. I would have loved that if they moved on from Jason Garrett and got Marvin Lewis. That would have been literally hysterical.
That would have been ideal, but alas, that is not the case. The Panthers finally just got their man, too.
Yeah, the Panthers have hired Baylor coach Matt Ruley to be their head coach. He signed a massive contract especially for an entry-level NFL coach. Signed a 7-year, $60 million deal, so just under $10 million just about $9 million a year. So good for him. It's a lot of money to pay for a guy that has no NFL experience, but I mean, he was highly requested. I understand why. The Giants were in on him, who they also got their guy. The Cowboys, I believe, were interviewing him later. The Browns were going to interview him, so I guess
the Browns
they really wanted their guy.
The Browns wanted to, and he was like, no, thank you.
He said, screw that. I'm not going there.
It is interesting, though. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury wasn't exactly the most highly sought-after college coach. I mean, he was an offensive coordinator at USC, and he got a job, and he did a pretty solid job for his first year in Arizona. And here's a guy that's accomplished more and had something much more stable at Baylor. And I guess it's interesting. I guess this is just David Tepper's guy. He better hope that it works out.
Man, it works out. Other than that, speaking of college stuff, Alabama quarterback Tua, how do you say it?
Tagovailoa.
Oh, yeah. that word. He's declared for the draft. He's still expected to be a first-rounder at the moment. It's going to be interesting to see because he could be a guy that's maybe mocked to the Steelers in the second round. I don't know about that. I'm sure someone's already said it.
I've seen him going like 5 still. Like, even with the injury, I've seen him going to the Dolphins.
And so, okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that he's expected to be a first rounder. I don't think he's going to fall out. And I mean, the hip, it sounds like he's on track to be good. He's going to go visit the doctor soon. And this is why he declared for the draft. He felt like the doctors were telling him good stuff, that he was going to be okay and all that. So I think that there is a chance that he just it's becoming more and more that injuries are like scaring away less teams. Like, it doesn't really work that way anymore, especially with quarterback. If teams think a quarterback is going to be good, they're going to take him even if he's injured. It's just how it is.
If Tua drops to the Steelers at, what is it, pick like right around pick 50, would you take him there?
Honestly, I'm going to defer that question to you because I feel like, in all honesty, I'm not knowledgeable enough. I don't watch college games. I'm not going to say that I'm like, oh yeah, I love Tua, because I don't know. I straight up don't know because I haven't watched any tape on Tua yet. I am very interested in looking at him in our pre-draft process just in case. But what do you think? You watch more college football than me.
He's definitely talented. What's interesting, though, is this is the way I kind of frame it. If a quarterback who was talked about as being the top quarterback going into the draft for most of this past college season, and you think about how far he'd fall to get to right around pick 50, why is he dropping that far? That would be my main concern as to think about avoiding him. And number 2 is just because a quarterback is drafted early, in some years doesn't mean it's going to be good. The quarterback draft of 2013, 2006, I think, that didn't yield good quarterbacks. Meanwhile, 2012 did. 2004 did. You know what I mean? Just because a quarterback might go early doesn't mean it's a good quarterback class. That being said, I definitely think about it, but I remember how we were talking about Darius Geis a couple years ago. It's like, why is he falling? Like, what's going on? It's one of those things where it's like, if someone drops to you at that point, are you almost concerned to take him?
Yeah, there is stuff like that to worry about. I don't know. I don't feel like Tua has those off the field issues though. I don't know though. Again, like I'm not very well versed yet on any college stuff. Haven't watched any tape because uninterested.
All right. Well, we'll get to that. So no worries.
Yeah.
Was there anything else to get to before we wrap this one up?
Just some quick retirements. Both Bills linebacker Lorenzo Alexander and Bears offensive lineman Kyle Long have announced their respective retirements. Do you have anything to say about that?
Lorenzo Alexander's a great dude. I don't know if you know his story.
I don't know his full story. I might have read it before. I don't remember it.
He was an undrafted free agent with the Panthers. He was cut by the Panthers and Ravens in 2005 and 2006, and then went on to have a decent career with the Washington Redskins. He played, I think, like 7 years there. He was a Pro Bowler at the end there. He was never like a big-time player, but he bounced around between the Redskins, Cardinals, Raiders, and now has spent the last 3 years with the Bills. He was a second-team All-Pro in his first year with the Bills after being an undrafted free agent 10 years earlier.
That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool story.
Finished his career with 470 tackles, 33 sacks. You know, just one, and he's one of those really good guys too. He is one of those. You you hear it a lot about how he's like, all these great players, and he really is an all-pro caliber person. You hear that kind of stuff a lot, but he really is one of those people.
Yeah, I heard he's gonna stick around and still be doing charity stuff in Orchard Park.
Yeah, so it's good to see people like that. And obviously, not that Kyle Long's not a good dude or anything. I don't know as much about him, but I know that he's obviously the brother of Chris Long, and it seems like injuries caught up to him over the last few years because he only played 7 years, but he was a good player when he was healthy.
Yeah, he was. I mean, it's just a shame, but I mean, just good for him that he's going out on his own terms.
Indeed. So, Austin, you want to give a quick recap of your picks for the divisional round since you will not be around for the preview episode?
I could do that. So Vikings at 49ers. 49ers are favored by 7. I'm having the 49ers cover. Titans at Ravens. Baltimore's favored by 10. I have the Titans plus 10 with the possibility of even winning that game, but I think they can keep it in 10. Texans at Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored by 10. I'm keeping the Texans plus 10. I don't think there's a real good chance that they win. I think there is a good chance that they can keep it within 10 in a nice second quarter comeback. And then Seahawks at Packers. Packers are favored by 4 points. I'm going to have the Seahawks plus the 4 points because I just don't trust the Packers team as a whole. I feel like their offense has been underperforming other than Aaron Jones.
Alrighty then. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have any questions about the Steelers or about the show itself, feel free to email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website, strongerthansteelnfl.blogspot.com. And you can check out our episodes posted on SoundCloud and YouTube under the name Stronger Than Steel Podcast. Austin, have a terrific time in Florida. Hope you enjoy the weather. Hopefully it's a lot nicer than it is up here. And I'm sure we'll be in touch to talk about the divisional round games at some point. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for listening. You've been listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with Austin and John. Take care.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.